Hey everybody, it's Kyle Fickler with Aeromotive Fuel Systems. Pretty cool project here today, as you can see on the lift. 66 Mustang, 347 cubic inch motor, 4-speed transmission. Pretty typical of what we might see in our typical customer build. Has aftermarket brakes, some drag suspension, very neat car, beautiful paint. Pretty excited to take it to the next level. Customer already had an A1000 installed external to the pump. Used the correct filter, but a few things that we probably would have done differently just in terms of the plumbing, things like that. But very typical what we might find in our typical installation. What the customer's done, he's decided to move forward to the next generation. And that next generation's right here. It's our Stealth tank. OE tank externally, powder coated gray, real nice fit and finish. Still uses the OE filler neck. Still uses the OE sending unit. The real advantage is what happens inside. Instead of having an external A1000, we've put a 340 liter per hour pump in tank. We've also added some baffling in tank. We pick up and return the fuel in tank just like your daily driver. What we've learned over the years, over Aeromotive's 20 years of engineering excellence, is that by putting the pump in the tank, we eliminate all the suction side issues. When it comes to hot fuel handling, ability to produce horsepower consistently in a street-driven vehicle or a race vehicle, a lot of advantages to going in tank. So pump's located here. You have a vent, your two electrical hookups, return, an outlet. This car happens to be carbureted. The 340, our Stealth 340, will support up to 1,000 carbureted horsepower. Way more fuel pump than what this car needs. On the other hand, it'll act in terms of durability, reliability, and quiet, just like an OE car. Very excited to get going on this, but you know how it is, safety first. We are dealing with fuel here, so got to be extra careful. We've already drained the tank. Be careful when doing that. This was a little easier because we actually had the return line from the A1000 system. That allowed us to drain the tank easier. It is a flammable substance, so no smoking when you're doing it. I know you guys all know that, but we got to remind you. Also, wear your safety glasses. You can never be too careful when you're working under the car. The Mustang's a little unique. Typically we talk about dropping the fuel tank. As you Ford guys know, in this instance we actually lift the tank out of the trunk. So that part of the installation is a little bit different. Want to get started. Going to go ahead and one cool thing about the Stealth fuel system is you don't need any real exotic tools. Anything you have in your toolbox will work. Just ordinary hand tools. We used a couple nut drivers, pair of side cutters, 7/16 wrench. Couldn't be any simpler. Very, very simple installation. But excited to get started so we can take this thing for a drive. Our customer's going to have some great parts here for his next project with his A1000. One of the cool things about this car being carbureted, it's already got the 13204 Aeromotive regulator. That's what we'd recommend on our Aeromotive power planner for the Stealth 340 that's in the tank. So he's got a little bit of a head start over the project. Some of the plumbing in place we'll probably reuse. We'll probably use the return line. Might adapt into that original or into the feed line he's got in place also. We'll take a closer look at it when we get the tank out of the car. Our Aeromotive Stealth 340 tank installation is actually going very well. Car's been a real pleasure to work on. It's very clean, much cleaner than anything I have at home to work on, so that's made it very fun. One thing about the Mustang that's a little unique is the tank comes out the top. Most cars, they come out the bottom. We actually call it dropping the tank. Depending on the size of the tank, you may want to call a buddy. I called my buddy Al just to come over and help me with this one anyway, even though it was coming out the top. Al's got more Mustang experience than I do. That helped as well. We got the pump out, electrical connections disconnected, feed and return line, and sending unit. So we're ready to pull the tank out. Paint on this car is very nice, so we've been a little extra careful. Ready to go in with the new one. As we mentioned, uses the OE filler neck, the OE sending unit, and this is where the Stealth 340 is located. Filler neck goes in the back. as simple as that. You know, pretty traditional installation here. Hooked up the feed and return line. That is required on a carbureted system where you have a return line, much like an EFI system using the 340 pump. One thing that's unique about the Mustang is because the fuel tank is actually the trunk floor, the vent is kind of a unique situation in this car. So the car has a vented gas cap on it. It seemed adequate in this car before, so we're going to go ahead and use that. The Aeromotive kit does come with a rollover valve. This valve must be mounted vertically if you choose to use it. In this situation, we're going to go ahead and rely on the cap. If that proves to be inadequate, then we'll find a place to mount this. It does need to be mounted higher than the filler neck, so that in this situation would be a little bit more challenging than in some other cars. We hooked up the positive in the ground. In this situation, the battery is in the trunk, so we're going to run the ground directly to the battery. On the power side, we recommend at least a 10 gauge wire, and that's what we have in this installation as well. Anxious to get this car on the road, as I mentioned before. Want to point out our Aeromotive fittings as well. This is a fitting obviously larger than what would be required in the installation, but we use a single point tooling. They're very high flow, very nice fittings, and highly recommend you use the Aeromotive fittings as well. With everything hooked up on our Mustang, we checked for leaks. Thankfully, we don't have any. Also, one other note, this does come with a sending unit that is specified for the car, and that's true of all the Stealth muscle car tanks. This tank and all other Aeromotive products are available at summitracing.com.